Okay. And there we are. Hi, everyone. It's Sarithkin from Calontir, and I'm here with Duke Xerxis from Calontir. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate on this and being cool with needing to be flexible with the scheduling. I really appreciate you agreeing and being able to meet you and learn a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've been looking forward to this for a while. And even when mundane stuff comes up, you got to be flexible with that, especially in the days and times that we have right now. Everything can change in a minute. So it's all Definitely. Good. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, I am happy to have you. So we talked a little bit before we got on camera, but most of these things I start with sort of your origin story. So if you want to start there, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents actually started in the SEA in Rolla, Missouri when they were in college, when they were about 18. So coming into college. Apparently my dad had seen some demos at some Ren fairs while he was 15, 16. Caught his interest, but he didn't, of course, have the viability to play at that time. But when they came to college, they realized that there was a group there. They started up and playing in Rolla and was basically half the barony at the shire at that time of Calontir. So they started up a shire while they were there. Had my older brother and my older sister. And then by the time they graduated, they had me. So 3 kids straight out of college. And by that time, they moved back to Des Moines where most of my family is and started playing there too. So I've been in the game since day one. So.
Wow. So who are your parents?
So my father is His Lordship Hugh Dupuis, and my mother is Her Ladyship Marie Dupuis. So they've been trucking away. My dad's been fighting for a number of years and doing some woodwork and working his way on the path to Laurel. And my mom's been cooking and doing a lot of service kind of on the Pelican Laurel circuit there as well for most of their time here. So.
Well, fun. So. Yeah. What kind of activities did you do as a kid in the SCA?
Oh, I hated the SCA as a kid. Yeah, no, it was actually the bane of my existence for a long time because I wanted to do normal kid stuff. I wanted to hang out with friends, go skateboarding or do what everybody else seemed to be doing when they were a kid. And I'd get dragged away to events and whatnot. And, there's only so many other kids in the SCA at the time. And, I had some friends while I was growing up in the SCA, but for the most part, I wanted to just keep hanging out with the friends I made at school and all that stuff. So to be honest, while I was a kid, I had a real big resentment with the SCA because it wasn't what I wanted to do. And of course, a 6 to 8 year old kid doesn't want to do what his parents want to do. So, but, I ended up, going to events and while I hated it and stuff, I think I started to really like the SCA when I turned about 13 years old. And I realized I could shoot archery and, I shot archery for hardcore for a while, just getting into it. And from 13 to 16, shooting archery, and I got pretty good at it. I got an AOA, a simple AOA at 14, and then the AOA for archery when I was 15, which at the time was the second youngest to get that at the time. So that kind of started to spark my enthusiasm for it. It's like, okay, so I can go, I can be good at something, I can do something with other people. I feel like I fit, and it's something that I enjoyed doing when I actually went to the events, because it was pretty hard when I was just a kid and I didn't think there was really anything other than just boffer fighting to do. So after that, I turned 16 and I kind of split time because I had a big love for archery and I was 16 and I could start fighting. So half the time I was doing archery and then half the time I was going out to the fighting field, and eventually fighting kind of took over my passion and I really enjoyed it. And it was something I was good at kind of right off the bat. So the learning and stuff, training and just constantly after school, every day, hitting the Pell, learning new stuff. I had some good friends near me in Des Moines, Iowa, that kind of sparked my enthusiasm to learn crazy new shots or the new thing that was on the block kind of thing, and just took my passion from there. And I still shoot archery from time to time now, but for the most part, I'm pretty much fighting and a little bit of service here and there in arts and sciences. So,
did you have other kids your age that were fighting with you?
So it seemed like by the time I hit 16, there weren't a whole lot of the kids that I grew up with that were still in the SCA to the point where they got armor and they were fighting. Like I had my brother, so he was 3 years older than me. He would fight on occasion. I actually got half of my armor from my sister because she started. Cool. She was 16, and it just so happened that she wanted to stop, and so I took half of her armor, got a helmet and all that other stuff, and put the rest of the kit together. But yeah, for the most part, I wouldn't say that I was in a group of kids about the same age as mine. I recognize some of them, but I guess the age separation kept me from really relating at that point in time with the other kids' age. I just kind of had friends that were a little bit older, His Excellency Agamemnon, His Excellency Matsu at the time. Obviously, I had my really close friends of Martino and Angus and all the kind of knights around me as well that I kind of grouped up with them at that point. So I wouldn't say that at that time I was super close to anybody who was real neck and neck with my age.
Okay. And what made you decide that you wanted to try fighting?
I started wrestling in 7th grade. So this physical competition was kind of ingrained in me at that point. And at the point where I started shooting archery and I really started to enjoy the SCA, it seemed like the next thing that I wanted to do. And, I grew up with a dad who's fought for, since he was 18, and he's 50 something now, right? 51. So, he's been fighting forever. And, I used to go to fighter practices with him every Tuesday, and I'd skateboard around the army gym while he's fighting and stuff, getting in trouble because I lost my skateboard or whatever. And so for the most part, I always watched him and enjoyed the competitiveness and just the kind of combative nature of it. I grew up a very small kid. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy right now either, but I came into high school as a freshman at 109 pounds.
Wow.
By the time I was fighting, I was only 125 pounds. So there was always something about me that wanted to be bigger. That's why I picked up wrestling. It's like, I never felt like I could defend myself. So when I actually started fighting, it was like, okay, I can learn something to protect who I am. I've got this Chihuahua effect in me. It's like, I'm this little small guy, but I want to act really big. So fighting was kind of a good way to outlet that. And, wrestling had given me some good footwork and stuff, but really translating into that into something that affected somebody else, with wrestling and then fighting involved, it was a good transition for me that I enjoyed that same competitiveness between people. So
that's super cool. You put on armor and all of a sudden you're not 125 pounds anymore.
Yeah. I mean, when you're fighting people who, 300 plus pounds, it's like all of a sudden it doesn't matter that you weigh whatever you do. You just got to make the little stick do the thing you want it to. And then you feel like you're on the same plane. And right. To be honest, being that small and growing, 16, 17 years old and going out there and impressing people drove a whole lot of my ambition, because it was like, why are you guys, I was amazed by how impressed people were, even though I was just out there having fun. And it translated to, oh, you guys are impressed just because I'm this little guy. Well, I don't like being an underdog. I'm going to show you that it's not just because I'm a little guy kind of thing. So
how tall are you now?
I'm 5'9" and I'm 170 pounds. So
okay, so you're still not big by any means, but yeah, you're like a small SCA person.
Right. Okay. So I mean, through high school, I might have grown a few inches, and after I graduated high school at about 152, I think it was what I was. Didn't really gain any weight through college, but of course after college you get into working and all that stuff. So
yeah, your day changes significantly. Our bodies are not built to sit as much as we do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so who did you hook up with to teach you how to fight?
Yeah, so funny story actually. Yeah, so my father was squire to Angus of Blackmore, who was a knight out of Calontir, or out of Des Moines, Iowa as well. So that's the barony of Cordon-Ouie. And my dad and my mom had actually been voted in by the king and queen to be the baron and baroness of Cordon-Ouie. And there's a tradition that I think most kingdoms try to follow, where if you're in a position of power, you don't want to have a belt or anybody above you and that could be affecting your decision making. You have to be a leader in yourself, right? So they made a decision to, he was going to give his belt back to Angus, and my mom would give her belt back to his then wife, Melissa, and so that they would be free of those burdens. And it was funny, I grew up over at Angus's house, once a week kind of thing, because obviously they were squired and apprenticed to the couple. So I was over there all the time, hanging out with their son and whatnot. And we were sitting over there. I'm 16, my brother's 19 at the time. And my Angus makes the joke, so if your dad's giving his belt back, I get to get you two in the trade, right? And they laughed and whatever. And then the next week he sends us, me and my brother, a text and goes, so when are you guys coming over to make your squire's belts? We laughed it off at the time. We're thinking, okay, haha, Angus, great. Great sense of humor, really funny guy. And it became very serious at that point. And both me and my brother, obviously living in the house at the same time, we're like, well, it looks like we're getting squired. Let's go. So we went over to Angus's. We made some squire's belts that weekend, and then the next incoming month, my mom and dad stepped up to be Baron and Baroness. And right after that incident, it's not a big thing. Right after that court, Angus had taken my father's belt back. He took us and we took our oaths with Angus, and we took squire's belts in exchange for my father, and history was ever set since then. So it was a funny thing at the time, but it really ended up being one of the coolest things that I could have done, I think. So it paid off dividends in the end for sure.
So what were his expectations for you?
That's pretty funny. He really never had great expectations out of us. He'd grown up. Angus, being my father's knight, he held me when I was 2 months old. So, he's grown up babysitting us and looking after us. And I ended up babysitting his son when I got a little older and all that stuff. We've always been family. So I don't think the expectations ever really exceeded anything other than, a son kind of thing. So, but what he did do, he set me up for success. He knew he was somewhat on the back years of his night of fighting. And to be honest, me and him alike are surprised he's still getting back in armor today. He's fought, being overweight and getting back into shape to stomach or to physically be in armor. And it's, been very inspirational for me to see that he's been able to do that. But he knew that being able to set me up with other people that would give me success. And, he's great friends with Martino, Duke Martino, who's now in Tennessee. So I learned a great deal out of Martino and all of the people within his household, from Gustav to eventually Martis, who got squired to him, and Colin the Grey and Ariel and everybody within that. So it was really a community effect that Angus was able to give me just by friends. And it's something that I found so effective and great that I give it to my own squires today. It's, I can only teach you so much. I'm going to introduce you to people that are going to be able to show you things I can't. Right. And I think it's a very effective thing to not have this ego of I'm the only guy that can teach you. Instead, give them opportunities to learn from everybody. I'm not the one answer by any means. There's plenty of people out there. So
was Martino like your main fighting instructor?
Yeah. So Martino was actually living in Kansas City at the time, and I was still in high school and then through college when I was in Des Moines. So, I'd fight with him as much as I could at events, but growing up in Des Moines, away from, we might have had 2 nights total, Angus included, sometimes 3 at fighter practices. Really, it was growing up with, Agamemnon, and then actually my future squire, Arnfast, who was just a year older than me, that kind of came back into the SCA and started fighting. So having Arnfast in that same age bracket and that same energy and that same movement style, and his father was a baron of Cordon Bleu many years prior as well. Like, I had somebody that I could learn from as well as learn with, and then somebody who took the initiative to kind of push me and teach me, the different kinds of shots and all this stuff. I mean, there weren't so many people that there was a wealth of knowledge, but at my weekly practice, I was getting pushed by certain people. And then on the weekends, I would have access to the plethora of people who would show up at the events like Martino and the Gustavs and the Ariels and everybody else. So it really worked out to my benefit greatly to have just multiple places where I could learn.
So how did you balance learning to fight and practicing fighting with your wrestling and other high school stuff?
Yeah, I didn't go to a whole lot of events during the wintertime. I mean, the rest of the year I was pretty open. So, we had the lilies and all that stuff. But, I didn't fight in a Toys for Tots until I was, I don't know, 19, something like that. So, or maybe I had one wrestling tournament that got canceled or wasn't scheduled that weekend, and I finally got to go to it. And I remember seeing it and being awed by the size of it at the time, because it was the biggest tournament in Calontir, right? But yeah, I mean, definitely once October-ish time hit, it was all wrestling for me, and it was, do this, and then when you have time, you might be able to go to an event and enjoy it. But for the most part, it kind of still falls into that thing where, as I was growing up, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and of course, going through high school, that's the last thing you want to mention to a classmate, because they're like, "Oh, you LARP now? Oh yeah, you fireball, dragon." Because of course, the whole time we're going through high school, you've got movies like Role Models coming out, right, that just constantly dig on LARPing and stuff. So, I kind of kept it a secret. It was my thing I did that didn't really tell anybody, and didn't pull a whole lot of pictures up on Facebook. And of course, MySpace and Facebook were the thing back in high school, and so it wasn't the big thing that I told everybody about. And it was just, I do what I think is normal, because I liked it. I wanted to kind of distance myself a little bit from the SCA at the time, because I didn't find it the most amusing thing. But then as I started finding things that I enjoyed, it was still kind of this is my secret. I'm going to do it because I enjoy it, and I'm not going to tell anybody else, because you guys are probably just going to crack jokes. So at this point, I'm just going to keep to myself. So,
well, I have to be honest with you. Most people that I work with have no idea.
Yeah,
because it's just too hard to explain, and then they want to see pictures, and then I
made that mistake on my first real job out of college. I divulged what I do on the weekends, and the minute that it made it up to my VP, I was like, all right, well, that's probably the last time that I share that, because to me, I don't want that extra stress. I enjoy what I do, and you guys probably won't understand it, so there's really no reason to share it other than I'm gonna enjoy what I do on the weekends. So
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you start out Sword and Shield or something?
Yeah. Different? So Calontir does try and get you they make it a rule. I don't even know if it's a rule, but the first thing they authorize in is Sword and Shield. And even if it's just a tradition at this point, I'm not sure I think it might be just written in the rules. It's been a while since I read them. Try not to follow them as much as possible, but for the most part, everybody gets their Sword and Shield, and then they branch out from that. I think I did everything in the same weekend, and then it took me a whole year to get 9-foot spear, because I was so afraid of it. Everybody put all this stress on blowing somebody's helmet up with a 9-foot spear. But for the most part, I think I authorized in Sword and Shield, and then within that month, I had just about everything else. So,
what do you enjoy the most?
So I fight a ton of Sword and Shield, but my absolute favorite system is 6-foot spear.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I don't, there's a certain chess game about it, and it might even tie back a little bit to fraternally to my brother. That was one of the things that he loved the most, was 6-foot spear too, because he's a huge melee fighter, and I was a big tournament fighter and melee, and it was something that we could kind of connect over. And he loved 6-foot spear, and I got into it, and I started to learn just kind of quirks and moves to it, and just kind of the chess match that you have, as quick of a chess match as it can be. But to be honest, 6-foot spear is probably one of my favorite systems out of all of them, which for most people would probably be surprising, since I fight so much Sword and Shield. But
cool, that's cool. So did you know that you wanted to be a knight and a duke, and like?
So that's an interesting question. So the way I was raised, I was getting good at fighting, and I could realize I was getting good at fighting. But the way my dad always presented it was if I ever was like, I want to be a fearedman, which is the AOA, right? It's like, I want to be a fearedman. He goes, oh, you want to be a fearedman? And it was kind of like this weird thing where it's like, if you stated you wanted something, it kind of set you back a little bit. You just kind of had to play the game and enjoy it. And then if you got awarded it, you got awarded it. And so I don't know the right word for it, but it almost seemed like you couldn't want something. You couldn't say that, or you couldn't say that you wanted something. You could go after something, but nothing's deserved. So it was this weird way of how I grew up, where it's like, well, yeah, I just want to go out and have fun. That was the key word, right? I'm gonna go out and have fun. It didn't matter that you actually wanted to be a fearedman. Like, to be honest, I wanted to be the youngest fearedman, Erin fearedman, just because I was the second youngest Boga fearedman. And then I did become the youngest fearedman at 17. And then I was like, well, let's see if I can be the youngest Huskarl. And so a year later, sure enough, I fought well and I was having fun and I was enjoying it. And I became a fearedman, or a Huskarl after that when I was 17. And there's still some debate up there whether I'm the youngest Huskarl, just because there's a lot of Huskarls in the past. But at that point, I was like, all right, I'm putting too much stress on wanting to get these things. I'm just going to go out and have fun, because I think the thing that helped me the most was after I became a Huskarl. So the next obvious step is to be a knight. Was my knight, Angus, he told me, he's like, all right, he had a heart-to-heart with me. He's like, we're going to wait till you're out of college. Like, let's not put this stress on you. We're not going to do it early. It's just going to add more. I mean, you got to get through college. You got to focus on college, get your degree, get out of there, and we'll worry about it later. And I totally accepted it. I was like, that totally makes sense. Like, this is degrees before SEA, grades before SEA, any day of the week. So when halfway through college, I was getting half the events I was in. I joined a fraternity in college. So, I was doing a bunch of that stuff and having a great time in college. And so I was really doing the whole mundane thing and SEA thing when I could, and really enjoying life at that point. And sure enough, my fraternity wanted to put on this Iowa Games, kind of like the Olympics, but just statewide Iowa Games soccer team. And I text my mom. I'm like, hey, I really want to go to this event, Raider Trade. And I'm 20 at this point, right? I'm like, I really want to go to this event, Raider Trade. And she's like, well, come. And I was like, well, my fraternity is putting on this Iowa Games soccer team. I really want to play. And she goes, well, do that. I mean, just go have fun. Go play your game. It'll be fine. I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of split. I really want to go to Raider Trade. I haven't gone to in a while. And I was like, you know what, Mom? No, I'm just going to do it. And she goes one more time. She's like, honey, just go play soccer. It's going to be fine. I said, no, Mom, I want to be there. I'm going. So I drive back down to Des Moines. It's only 30 minutes from college, so it's not too bad. And sure enough, the day goes by. I'm having a good time. The pickup fields are kind of crashing down a little bit. Angus comes up to me. He goes, hey, get a few fights with me to close out the day. I'm like, all right, cool. So me and Angus fight, and we have some good bouts. And then His Majesty Hirsch at the time comes up and he goes, hey, will you fight me? I've just got a few more fights left, just single sword, just to have a little bit of fun. I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. When the king says he wants to fight, right. Don't say no, right? So I fight him a little single sword and whatever, and just kind of enjoying the day, knowing that I got away and kind of got to do some SEA. I haven't done a little bit or whatever, and we're sitting in the back of the court. I'm with my squire brother who'd been under Angus for quite a while, and we're just joking and hanging out. And all of a sudden, Angus was like making a bag or something in the back of court, and they call Angus up, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm sitting here with my squire, who's been a squire for a number of years, and he's walking up, and obviously when your knight goes up in court, you start having those thoughts in the back of your mind. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I'm like looking around, like looking for other squires that might have been there that I missed or something. And I look over at my squire brother, and I'm like, no way, they're finally going to do it. Like, they're finally going to make him or whatever. He walks up, and then they call my name, and I lose it, like just blubber, just crying, all this stuff. And I'm like, just awestruck. I because to me, in the back of my head, I thought 22. I have to wait until I'm 22 to even have another chance, kind of thing. And here I am at 20, and they call my name, and I'm just awestruck at the point. And I kind of stumble. I kind of blacked out halfway through going up the aisle, and just crying the whole way. Hug my father on the way through, and finally make my way up there. And that's kind of how it went. And all of a sudden, I'm 20 and I'm about to get knighted. So it was just something I never expected, but you know, I finally got that youngest knight of Calontir, so I nailed it.
Youngest. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think it's super cool that Angus, basically said, well, let's just focus on college and don't worry about it. And so in your mind, it's like 22. I'm gonna finish college and I'm not gonna worry about it. 22, and it's like you're doing the right thing, right? You're having fun. You have your priorities in the right places.
It took so much stress off my shoulders. It was like, cool, I can really just go enjoy. I don't have to worry about, appearances. I don't have to worry about really performing in tournaments. I can just go out and have fun. And to be honest, that might have ended up being the key, because I think a lot of people out there, they put so much stress on, I've only got so much time left. Right. And that's the one thing that I do have, is potentially a lot of time.
Yes, you do.
So, some people I see and I go, they may only have a few years left to fight. So yeah, they take it a lot more seriously. And it may be end up being the downfall for them, because they get too ingrained in the objective instead of what the hobby's really about, which is just going out and having a good time. So
yeah. So you're what, 28 now?
I'm 28.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
So you got put on vigil there. How long was your vigil?
So we took about a month to plan it. And then about a month after that, so we did I picked an A&S event because I heard so many horror stories about vigils being at fighting events and the guys not being able to fight while they're on vigil. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pick an A&S event, so I'm not gonna miss any fighting. So I was put on at like 8, and I think I was taken off about 4. So I didn't do an overnight one, but we just did it during the day for the most part, and everybody could come and talk to me if they needed to.
Cool. That's cool. So I'm going to go back because Valora has a question, and it might be a funny question. I don't know.
Okay.
She says, how does distraction play into that 6-foot spear chess game?
So like I said, it's a chess game. You have to throw some pawns out there to really take away for the shot that you want to throw. So Valora, if you just got to get the hips moving in a certain direction. So it's an inside joke that there's a 6-foot spear tournament at Battlemore that I really got some sensual motion moving during my final bout with.
So that's the distraction?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So those hips do not lie, ma'am. You just have to play it up pretty good. So
that is funny. She also asked, do you feel pressure to represent well for any young fighter who aspires to knighthood?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I was told when I was getting, in my vigil was that you have to represent. And it's not just representing knighthood like most people would. You have to represent what I stand for. And what I didn't realize at the time was, I get this cool accolade of being the youngest knight of Calontir, but what comes along with that is anybody who could ever get knighted at the age of 20 or in those very young years of 20 to 24, they have to deal with people looking at them as children.
Right. So
I had to live up to the expectation that as a knight at this age, I have to act appropriately as if I was 45, as if I was an aged person. Like in all honesty, I can't act immaturely. I can't act inappropriately. I can't act, anything unchivalrously like, which the unchivalrously like makes complete sense. But what weighed a good portion of me down through a lot of my early 20s was trying to play a part instead of being myself. So a lot of it was not having a lot of fun instead of just doing what you were supposed to do, kind of thing. Right. So it wasn't until I finished up with my first reign that I started to realize I'm not really having fun. I'm not doing what I would have done to have fun. I'm trying to play this part of pristine and pure and perfect.
Right.
When the SCA is about having fun. Right.
And you have a unique perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, when I finished up my first reign, I really looked back at myself and I was exhausted, right? I was 23, I think. Yeah. 22. Yeah, I was 22 when I won, 23 when I finished up. And I got done with it and I was like, I'm exhausted.
Right.
You know, there's just so much that I had to do and so much I had to handle with and so much I had to take care of. And I got done, and the whole time just trying to be this pristine and perfect person and failing and going through an entire reign and just having multiple failures on my part, that it was just like, man, this is tiring. I'm not having fun. And it took some of my really good friends to kind of pull me out of it and just say, hey man, you get to be yourself. We like you because of who you are. And it was after that I was like, you know what? You're right. Let's go to an event to just have fun. You know, you don't have to fight at every event. You can go and just have fun and enjoy your weekend. I mean, hell, I'm giving sometimes vacation up for this stuff. I'm not just gonna spend that on being miserable. So
Right.
yeah.
And you know, little not very well kept secret is most of the 45-year-olds don't act like 45 either.
They figured it out. They figured it out before I could.
Right. Yeah. So was your second reign more you?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was. You know, there's a certain confidence that comes when you finish a certain reign, because all the unknowns are known at that point. You get through a reign, you're like, I don't even know what to expect. But by the time you're done, you're like, wow, that sucked. But the second time you go around, you go, all right, we're going to expect that one shitty person. Yeah. We're going to expect that one butt kisser. We're going to expect this other, you know, you start expecting the normal stuff, right? And for a reign, as a reign goes. And as you go through it, you just kind of like, you can be more you can be more confident in who you are because you've done it once. You know that certain things are good to go and certain things aren't good to go. You know, I learned a lot from my first Penzic as crown. Like the second go around, I was like, all right, I got this. You guys want to drag me away? Nope, I'm out. I got a party to hold. I'm not messing around. Like, it was a totally different roundabout when it came to the second reign. I really enjoyed it. There were still hiccups. Obviously, every reign's going to have that unpleasant moment, you know, or two or three or four. But in reality, you're more set to handle that situation. So I think second reigns are way more enjoyable. And I can't imagine what a third reign is, but I can imagine that it's going to be pretty fun. So
I have to ask, are you the youngest count and duke as well in Calontir? Or did you not hit the like pentathlon or whatever?
I think I am. Okay. I think that was something. I mean, we're talking like, this is stuff that was said like when I was 22, 23. Right. When, wow, you're going to be the first, you know, youngest king and stuff. So it's been 5 years since those things have been said. You know, I've been that since for a while now, so I've forgotten a lot more than I can remember. But yeah, I want to say that I was the youngest count and duke and king of Calontir, at least. Obviously, right. Not out there, because you know we've got I'm forgetting his name right now, but from the Outlands, the Boleslav's son. Why am I forgetting his name? Either way, I remember him being at Lily's and being 18 and being king, and seeing him.
I was going to say, I think Cullum and Eldamir reigned really early too.
Cullum was an 18-year-old or 19-year-old at the same time. Yeah. So he was very young as well. So, I mean, there were already guys that beat me to it. So I was like, well, this is not going to be forever and ever. But there was about a year amount of time that somebody had told me, and it kind of messed with my head. They were like, you know, you're the youngest peer in the known world right now, right? And it blew my mind a little. I'm like, okay, I'm 20 and I just got made a knight. And I'm like, oh shit, you're probably right. You're probably right. That's kind of wacky to think about. Like, never would have thought that, but it was cool to hold on for like 2 years or whatever. And then somebody else got knighted. So
yeah, especially now, because it seems like the path to peerage is so much longer now. Like some of these guys that I've talked to who were knighted in the 70s and 80s, like that would be no big deal. 20 would be no big deal. Right, exactly.
So and well, you know, when you think about it, I like to think about it a different way. I've been in the SEA for 20 years and I finally got my peerage. Right. So yeah, I've been practicing since I was 6 with boppers. So all you guys got nothing on me.
Right. But, so it was a long road.
It was absolutely my whole life, to be honest.
Right.
But, right. So, no, and to be honest, you know, every year that I hit my, you know, the Facebook timeline pops up. It's like, oh, you know, 8 years ago this happened. You know, my knighthood pops up, and it was actually just 17 days ago. I got knighted 8 years ago. So to think that I've been a knight longer than I've been fighting, or I've been a knight longer than I haven't been a knight, is kind of
That's
crazy.
always kind of a head trip.
Yeah. And I'm coming up on that decade mark, and as a 28-year-old, that messes me up. It's like a third of my life I would have been a knight coming here in 2 years. So it's something crazy. So
it is a little crazy. So were you always a good tournament fighter, or was that something that you had to work on?
no, I think I've always been a really good one-on-one fighter.
Okay.
I think that translated pretty well to melees, but I don't think it was until I got my 9-foot spear authorization and I transitioned that love of 6-foot spear into 9-foot spear that I became a really good melee fighter. But when it came to the tournament fields, I always seemed to be really comfortable. And I don't know if it was because of my wrestling and knowing that, all right, there's just one guy, I got to take care of one guy, maybe I'll get this lucky shot on him. Maybe I won't, maybe I'll lose. Either way, it's just one guy. So, and feeding off a little bit of crowd participation always helps. But I think I impressed the most because I fought a lot of tournaments and I did all right in a lot of them as a young kid. So
you won crown like 3 years after you got knighted?
2 years.
2 years.
So I finished up college. I got a pretty good job. And one of the things that Angus told me, was we're going to wait until you're out of college, have a good job and you're stable, that you can move forward. And when I got out of college, I was already a knight. So that kind of surpassed itself. But I got to the end of my job. I was there for about a year or so, or maybe a little less than a year. And I was making adult money. So I sat there and I went, I can do this. Like, I've got the financial, I've got the vacation, I've got I got set up in a pretty nice little job right off the get-go. So I sat there and, the consort that I fought for, and both times, she was available, obviously. And she said, yeah, let's do it. And I went after it, and I lost the first crown that I fought in. I brought a girlfriend to that at the time, so that was a little embarrassing, but I made it to the finals at least. So
it's embarrassing not to win it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the best part was in the car ride home, she goes, I thought you won that. And I went, I know, baby, but it's okay. We'll move past it. But the next crown after that, I made it back to the finals and ended up winning it. So it was nice that, I'd been fighting in crowns since I was 18. And I was just recently made a Huskarl at that point. And one of the funniest things that somebody came up to me to say to me when I first, showed up to that crown was, oh, so you just got made a Huskarl and you think you can fight in crown tournaments or whatever, just joking around, right? I went, no, I turned 18. It's legal now. You gave another tournament for me to fight in. Like, now that I'm of age, I can do this. So for the first 4 years, I think, like that, before I got knighted, I fought for my mother. And then
Cool.
I got knighted, and I had those good talks about, okay, you're a knight now. We have to be smart about where you're at. You're still in college, just wait, all this stuff. So I put off crown tournaments until I graduated and made sure I was in that good financial state where I could afford and have PTO and all this other stuff to actually do a reign. So
Cool. Do you have like a tourney day ritual?
absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I hear a lot of people like, I listen to this certain playlist, I got to do these certain things. The only ritual I have for tournaments is I do not eat breakfast. I have this real bad thing where if I'm in a very competitive state, that my stomach doesn't really set well. So before a fight, if I'm nervous, stuff ain't going right for me. So, and to be honest, in that first crown that I had, about halfway through, somebody brought me some food. I'm like, all right, I need to eat. It's like 12 o'clock or something like that. And then sure enough, some guy gets sick like halfway through it. And, we're fighting on this stage in an auditorium. And he goes out to like the side door of it and doesn't close the door behind him or anything, just starts doing his thing out the door. And because of the auditory effect of the whole stage, it just echoes through the whole thing. And I'm a sympathetic kind of stomach guy, if you know what I mean. And I had to like take my helmet off, take my gorget off. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
This is all before the final, before the like semifinals. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's like give me biological warfare over here, just like put me in some kind of situation. But no, and to be honest, the best part about it is it used to happen to me before a lot of wrestling matches. And there's something about it that you get really hyped up after it's done. And you're like, all right, cool. Now I'm ready to fight. You know, I've got the bad stuff out of me. Now time to get back in the zone. So came out, ended up winning that crown, and got a cool little video out of it because my consort was in a relationship with a guy at the time that was a big photographer. So he like clipped and snipped all my fights together and put all that together. And it was interesting to look back because I've watched that video a number of times of my, it's just my crown fights. It's nobody else's because he just wanted,
right.
All that. And going back through the YouTube comments makes me not feel famous, but feel what famous people feel when they go on social media and somebody's just like, oh, harsh comment. Oh, harsh comment. I think one of my favorite ones was, of course, the young athletic guy would win this tournament. To me, I'm like, no, I'm just like, I'm trying not to get hurt by it. But at the same time, I'm like, you don't understand. I spent every day after high school going home, open the garage door, pull down the lapel, do 1,000 shots, and then go in, do my homework, get back to wrestling practice, all this other stuff for years straight. And this whole time I was all butthurt about it, but it ended up, I just decided.
Yeah, people, they don't want to know the truth, right? Like this bitterness. So you're like SCA famous.
I guess. I don't know.
I'm going to have to look up the video now.
It's funny. So there's people that come up and I'm like, hi, I'm Xerxis or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're Xerxis? And I'm always like, that doesn't sound good. What have you heard? Because, there's people I've never met that apparently know who I am. And I mean, I love to meet these people because obviously I want as many friends as possible. There's tons of amazing people out there. I just hope I don't embarrass myself for the most part. So.
All right. Well, we're going to take a couple of questions from the people watching. So Sarah asks, what one piece of advice do you have for kids growing up in the SCA?
One piece of advice. If you want to stay in the SCA and you want to be involved, find something you enjoy. It wasn't until I found something that I enjoyed that made me want to stay. So finding your niche, whether it's service, whether it's archery, whether it's boffer, whether it's making something cool. I mean, I've seen through the 2 crowns that I've had, I've seen some kids make some amazing art and do amazing service from water bearing to any who really just enjoy that. Go for it.
I have a kid and she is not interested except for archery. Archery is a great thing for kids because it's really fun and they can do it. So there's nothing better than hitting the target when you meant to. And it's just a little bit of, there's just like a little bit of gratification that comes back to you when it's like, I've done the thing that I meant to do. And that's honestly, I'm way too competitive to be an actual person at this point. But, doing archery and winning certain archery competitions, or at least competing with people that were better than me, that's what drove me to want to keep doing archery. So if it's something you love, whether it's the competition of it or not, you just keep doing it because you like doing it. If you don't like doing it, don't do it. So Merrick asks you a related question, which I don't know if it's going to be the same answer, but he says, what do you think we can do to improve that transition between youth and adult activities to potentially retain kids that grow up in the SCA? I think, growing up, there was always the youth activities like Page School and arts, certain arts and sciences, but and there was always the boffer fighting. I think the boffer fighting being more organized has its benefits, but at the same time, there was a little bit of backlash, especially with Calontir, whether boffer fighting would be allowed outside of being marshaled kind of thing. And that was something I was really against, because personally, it's like, you can't hold kids into a box. They want to be kids. And for the most part, they're going to rebel. I mean, hell, that's what I did, right?
they're going to want to rebel. But if you allow them to do something organized where they feel like they're doing something productive, but at the same time give them the freedom to go do the same thing under their own rules, let them have fun. Like, let kids be kids as much as they can. If they find something that they fall into a box into and they really enjoy it, they're gonna love the SCA. I mean, being in the SCA, being king in the SCA, you see the kids that love doing stuff a lot. And every now and then you see the kids that aren't. They're just not happy to be there. They're in the car the whole time, kind of thing. It's like, fine, if you can make it. Here's something. Okay. Something that always upset me as a kid was I was always treated as a child. It gave me a bunch of resentment for most of my years. If you can treat a kid as an equal doing whatever they're doing, they're gonna want to do it, because they're not gonna feel like they're being forced into something. They're not gonna feel like they're just being pitied upon. They just want to be treated as humans.
Exactly.
Especially, past 6 years old. I mean, under 6, they're probably like, I don't know, I want a bottle. I don't know how kids are, but
teenagers especially.
Yeah, especially teenagers. Yeah. Those formative years where they're like, I'm becoming a person. You need to include them as an adult. If you treat them as an adult, they're going to respond way better to the activities that are in the SCA. They're going to enjoy it more. Yeah. So that's what I would say. If you want more kids to stick around, treat them as adults, as equals, as people who can do things in the SCA.
Yeah, and include them, like even in conversation, like.
Absolutely, conversations that might be the biggest thing, to be honest. I mean, just make them feel like they're one of you.
Right.
I mean, you can't just look at somebody and go, "Oh, this is above your head." Like, give them a chance.
Yeah.
If it is, they'll walk away. If it isn't, then they'll want to be involved.
My daughter, when she has the most fun, and she's 14 now. Is when she's just hanging out in camp and people include her in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think that's really good advice. Even though she's still like, she would rather play D&D in the tent. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey, I played Magic in my tent and with my brother many a day at Lily's, and got yelled at by my dad because we weren't out there playing. So I totally get that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's okay too. I think playing Magic in the tent's okay.
Yeah.
You do what you want to do. So you talked about pulling the Pell down and doing like 1,000 shots a day. Was that all through being a squire?
Yeah, I did Pell shots. So my parents had a 2-car garage. They had the tennis balls to keep them from hitting the back wall or whatever. But we also had, my dad worked in fencing for a number of years with my uncle, and we had just like a fence post wrapped in foam and duct taped that was chained up, and I could pull it down and then put it to a car jack so it wouldn't move. And then I had it all marked up, throw my whatever 100-shot sentry drill plus movement and plus all this other stuff, and really got into that. And I would literally come home from work, well, sometimes from work as well, but from school, it's 3:30 or whatever. So I got plenty of time, open the garage door, pull down the Pell. If it's cold outside, keep the garage door closed or whatever, and get my 100+ shots in and do a bunch of other stuff with it. And then I'd put that up. And as I was working on other stuff, I'd bring that tennis ball back down, start working spear shots. And, it was the cool thing at the time to do the sentry drill, when I was coming up, and it seemed like a cool, a good way to master shots and stuff and work different new shots. The coolest thing about growing up with the folks that I had was it seemed like every week there was a cool new shot we could try out and figure out the mechanics of it and figure out how the sword worked and how your body needed to move. And I think the one that always was elusive to us was the offside wrap. It's like we tried to figure out all these cool things, and then trying to get this like offside wrap and getting the mass behind it. Obviously when you weigh 120 pounds, it doesn't really work very often, but it interested me enough that I didn't care. I'd come home from school and do my shots and then go and do homework and move on.
So as somebody coming up, when the internet was actually available, how big a part was YouTube in sort of your stealing, learning, incorporating into your style?
I don't think it was a single bit.
Really?
I mean, to be honest, yeah. I mean, I was coming up and YouTube really wasn't a thing through high school. YouTube was part of a thing through college. And I used a lot of that just to show people what I did so they wouldn't make fun of me. But for the most part, I really didn't watch a whole lot of tape. There wasn't a whole lot of tape to really be seen. I think YouTube really came out. I watched a lot more YouTube after I got knighted, I'd say. So the later half of college for me. So at that point, I kind of hit the knighthood.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the stuff I wanted to learn and see came from just being places and seeing shots. There's this shot that Duke of Shear here in Calontir throws where he drops the sword and comes over the offside real quick. And I, for the longest time, tried to throw that on my Pell and literally just called it the Shear shot. That's, I do 10 of these, 10 of these, 10 of these, 10 of these, and then 10 of the Shear shot. And, I've never really mastered it. But at the same time, it was just, I saw that. I thought it was cool. Let's figure out how it's done. We see Rothgar come out to Lilies from the Outlands, and he threw this amazing dump over body shot, and I wanted to figure that out just because I saw it and it looked cool as hell. So I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. How does he do this? All right, so he's got this pump fake over here, he drops his whole body and all this stuff, and it's like, all right, so I might be one of the few people that could throw this shot. Let's see if we can get it all right. So
that's cool. So tell me, what was the most surprising thing for you about reining?
The most surprising thing about reining, sometimes you expect something out of a person, like a certain response. You say something, or you bring up this idea, or you come up with this thing, and you go, this person's going to be on my side. These people are going to be on my side. And the most surprising thing is that one person that's not. And you go, oh my God, am I making a mistake? This one person that I was 100% was going to be that's the guy that's going to be on my side. Then all of a sudden he goes, whoa, that's kind of messed up. And you go, hold on. I'm going to backtrack here. Let me rethink, collect myself. We'll come back to it. We'll see what's going on. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing is when you get to a situation and you think everything's okay, and then it's not because of one person that you expected it to be isn't. That'll mess you up pretty good.
Interesting. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part. So my favorite part is probably meeting all the people that you get to meet. I think more than half the friends that I have right now are because of getting to know the deeper parts I wouldn't have known previously in my own kingdom, as well as getting to go places and meet those new faces. There's something about going to a foreign war as a crown and meeting all the other crowns at the time. And I mean, you can pick out pretty much who you're I get along with that guy, or I do not get along with that guy. And you kind of just start talking and hanging out, and you've got this thing in common where you can just kind of break the ice real quick and say, all right, let's get down to the jokes. What's your dirty joke, or what's, whatever is this or that. And you really get down to what these people are like. And to be honest, after my first reign, there were a whole group of people that I've become really close friends with just right off the bat. Penzic itself gave me all these personalities and people and activities that I could go do and places I could go just because I was crowned at one war. So it was an amazing experience just in networking, if that's what you want to call it.
No, yeah, definitely. I think that is what you call it. And that it is a cool thing because then, you go wherever and who those people are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you can feel comfortable. So somebody put out something on Facebook the number of years back. It was it was all SEA related. It was how many people are you friends with from other kingdoms? And there's 19 kingdoms at this point. And I was like, dang, I think I got friends in 17 of them at this point. and everybody else is putting like 7, 6, and 10 or whatever. I'm like, whoa, okay, being crowned once really makes you some friends. Like, I've got friends in Locac, I've got friends in Drachenwald, I've got friends in Aitenveld, the West, Kaid, I could go on and on and on, but just to be able to say you could go anywhere in the world and probably have somebody that you could call is amazing.
Or that you could set up a really cool fight practice with.
Right. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, I'm going to be in San Diego for vacation.
Right.
Should I bring my armor? Yes, you should bring your armor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we've almost been going an hour. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about?
Let's talk about you. What is your passion in the SCA?
Fighting. No.
Oh, okay. What else? Everybody says fighting. What else?
I costume, I fight, I'm a pelican for like putting together fight classes.
All right.
So
for costuming, did you make your own tunic?
I did.
All right.
Yeah.
So how can I get on the schedule to get a tunic from you?
Okay.
All right. I'm game.
It's like actually
all these interviews, I'm not sure anybody's ever asked, how are you?
Oh, well, I appreciate it. You're very charming. You're very charming.
It's all about friendships. It's all that matters.
Yeah. So, yeah, I enjoy the SCA a lot. I think, like everyone else, like the biggest passion is the people that, you make lifelong relationships with, right? Like my best friends are in the SCA. I met my husband in the SCA.
There you go.
My sister plays SCA. I mean, it's, Kit says I paint awesome shields too. I forgot.
I
paint shields.
Did you and your SCA or your sister grow up in the SCA together, or when
we did not? She introduced me to the SCA when I moved up to Seattle for law school.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm always jealous when I talk to someone like you who found it like really early and you got to start fighting earlier.
Well, that's just it. You never had the period where you hated it.
Right.
You've always gotten to enjoy it.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
I'm just making my kid hate it, right?
Well, no, that's not true. You could always make them love it.
Yeah.
Well, not make them.
No.
Encourage them to love it.
Encourage, inspire,
yes.
Facilitate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's look at your sword then.
Oh, yes. Let me pull my pants down. All right. I've got a few of them. I go between 3 different baskets, but I pulled my 2 most used ones. So,
okay.
36 inches plus tip. So they're 36-inch blanks, Frank's Canaan staff or whatever it is from California. They'll just cut it out for you. Throw a tip on there, basic black foam. I really haven't started to enjoy this spring steel one.
I just bought one of those.
Yes, I really love it. I fought with a plastic one for a number of years. And then as I started to get more into, I got knighted and all this stuff, I was like, okay, I want my kit to look more kitty, I guess. I don't know, more period. I wanted to get away from plastic, right? So started hiding some things, started making some new armor that fit the persona, and I wanted to go with something that was definitely not plastic. So I got the spring steel one. I've got the aluminum one from I'm forgetting now, but either way, I definitely like the spring steel one just because it's so small. It's not heavy. It's not as hefty. 2-finger trigger inside there.
Okay.
There's something about 1-finger trigger that makes me nervous, and 3-finger that I don't feel like I have control. And then a leather donut to protect my knuckles.
Cool.
So, and then the handle shape is a bit of an egg, but really more of a wedge. I really don't put a whole lot of work into the hand part of it. I really just make sure that it's somewhat
sort of almond shaped.
Yeah, a little bit. Just want to make sure that my hand fits pretty comfortably in there. Not too small, not too big. Just don't want to. I've had a lot of problems with straining my knuckles in my hands, like pulling my hand out of the basket and just like creaking it back open has been a problem. And it scared me for a while. But to be honest, the handle size has been pretty important, I think, for a lot of my swords. So,
yeah.
And for the tape job, something that I don't think a whole lot of people do, but might have started picking up on. I just double strapping tape it and then put a blade on it.
Okay.
So I do not do a whole lot of tape.
You don't
work on
spiral
it.
tap?
I spiral the strapping tape and then one up and over
Okay.
and then a blade.
Okay.
So I don't put an extra layer of duct tape on the sides. I think that just adds unwanted weight. Yeah. But for the most part, the strapping tape is what protects the sword, and I don't mind going through a sword a month.
So. You just use hockey tape?
No hockey tape, just strapping tape. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And then duct tape. So to be honest, I have had friends who have used hockey tape before, stick tape, right? I don't think I've ever done that though. I've just only ever used the strapping tape. So, but it's a pretty simple stick. I think 36 inches is, obviously easily cuttable with 9-foot shafts. I remember you in a previous one where your husband used to get mad because he'd get a little longer, but
no, see, he makes my sticks, so he won't make it any longer. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I need to teach my girlfriend how to make sticks, and then maybe she could just make me a whole bunch of them, and then I'll just never run out. That'd be perfect. But yeah, no, I mean, I think 36 is a perfect length. It's kind of a uniform length, I think, to the point where it's like you're not giving too much and you're not under giving where you have to do a certain thing. I think obviously your fighting style has to give into your sword length. I was listening to Edward's sword lengths at 42 inches, and I'm like, oh my God, how do you do that? But
well, he's 6'3", right?
That's true. I'm 5'9", so I guess
he doesn't do it anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like I can reach you from a pretty good grip, and then when I'm in close, I'm not dealing with a bastard sword, basically, right? So I want to be able to be fluid in my fight coming in and out. So I can do anything I need with whatever range I need, 36 inches.
So Kith asks where you get your spring steel basket hilts from. I can't remember where I got mine from, but I can look and I will let Kith know. But.
Cannot remember either. But funny story, if we like funny stories. The first time I saw these, I was like, yo, me and Matsu were at Gulf Wars or something. We're like, we need to go get one of these. These look dope. And we were walking around the merchants. We finally saw them. We're like, there they are. We're like looking at them. We're all like, dude, these are awesome. We're like playing with them or whatever. And the vendor comes up and goes, pretty cool, huh? And I'm like, yeah, these are great. Like all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, I mean, fighters these days, they really want light basket hilts. But if you don't want a sword block with it because, it's spring steel and all this stuff. And he just like, I don't know the exact situation, but it was something about it that we walked away feeling insulted that we sword blocked with our sword. And me and Matsu looked at each other and was like, well, you just lost yourself a sale, sir, because I sword block hella all day. So.
See, the sword is for killing.
No, bro, half the defense.
No, okay, yeah. So Kith, I will look because I just bought it and I know I have an email receipt, so I will look.
It's been so long since I've had mine, I can't remember either.
Yeah. So yeah, neither one of us remember. Somebody says Darkwood. That might be it.
Oh, that sounds.
Yeah. I don't know. I will look and I will put it in the comments. So
cool.
All right, you ready for the final 10?
All right, let's do it.
All right. What event have you never been to that you would like to go to?
So the one that I've always aspired to was Raglan, just because they fight in a castle. And there's, I mean, if you grow up in the SEA, the only thing you're always missing is a castle to fight in. So I really want to do that. Also Great Western, I've been hyped up about it and I really want to go. And it seems like an amazing place to hang out, great weather and great fighting and all that stuff. So it's kind of
people.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
I missed out on a chance to do this at Penzik, my very first Penzik. I watched my buddy Martis fight Branos, and I didn't get pickups with him. I don't know what I was thinking. I knew it was Branos. I watched his videos, and I just sat there and didn't go fight him, and I regret every minute of that. So Branos, if you're out there, please find me. I really want to do some pickups.
You want to hear a Branos story?
Yes.
Flew Branos out to my kingdom, paid for it,
put
him up, and I didn't fight him because I was like, oh, I'll let everybody else fight him. It's okay. And then I thought about it. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. No, so, you got to get those fights.
Yeah, he's on my list
he was he was gracious enough. We our Barony has been putting on a Wednesday virtual fighter practice, and Matsu was nice enough to reach out to Branos and see if he would do it. And he did the Wednesday practice, and I watched it, and I was learning a bunch, getting to see how he does stuff. And we usually record every Wednesday practice, and sure enough, that's the time it fails. So we don't have footage of it. So we're going to see if we can reach out to him again and see if we might be able to get another go at it. So
he's pretty generous with his time.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
All right. So, what is your favorite Penzic story?
So my first Penzic is King. I've been to Penzic 3 times. The first time my kingdom put on a fundraiser to take people who have never been to Penzic, and I think I was 17 or 18 when I went, or maybe even 19, and I'd never been. And I think I was conceived there, but we're going to move past that. So I went for my first time, and I had a great time. And then the next time I got to go, I was king, and I had won that crown that would have taken the army to Penzic. And we weren't a primary by any chance. I didn't really know anybody. It's my first crown, so I'm just kind of getting into the whole roots of it all. And we get to the bridge battle, and they win the first 2 bridge battles. So there's like 3 of them or something like that. So we'd won that whole battle scenario. And Havek out of the west comes through, and he goes, "Hey, Calontir, we've won. You guys can do whatever you want." And I was like, dope, let's do it. Because before, we were like the army behind supporting and all this stuff. So I turned to my army, which the average age at the time was probably 42.
Right.
Like I was the youngest by far, and I was king. And I turned to them and I go, "All right, guys, I haven't gotten to run all day. Like I haven't got to do anything really. This sucks. So I'm going to run. You guys, I do not fault any of you if you do not want to follow me in running. I know that we have a smaller army, an older army, but either way, if you want to come with me, you can. There's no ill will if you do not want to run in this battle." And the coolest thing is all of them going, "Oh, we're coming." Like, I'm like, all right, then let's do this. Right. So I turn around, and we've got it all set up. Like I've got my Queen's champion with me. I've got my King's champion with me. We got 9-foot spears pointed in the ground. So we have kickoff starts like it's a track meet. I'm all like set up. And there's this amazing photo of that bridge battle that you could get on a Penzic postcard because somebody sent it to me. And I'll tell you why in a second. But we're charging in, and I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah, this is awesome." And I've got my 9-foot spear. I'm like, I just want to get it to the bridge, block up as many people as possible, and just wreak havoc and get out of there. So we're charging. I'm almost to the bridge. I touch the first foot on the bridge, and this guy with a unicorn on his shield comes around this hay bale stack, and he sees me, and he goes, "Oh, shit." Well, in my head, I'm like, that guy's like, "Oh, shit." And so he starts running, and everybody in his unit with unicorns on their shield starts coming around this, like, "Oh, no." So they start coming at the same bridge, and I meet him what I thought was like halfway. In later retrospection, everybody kept telling me I was about 3/4 of the way across the bridge. I turned my spear sideways, lowered down, hit him up on the shield. I bounced back about 3 feet. I was like, "Oh." So I charged him again, hit him again, and then the rest of the folks started filling in. I hit the ground. I don't even know if I got hit, but I was like, I should probably be dead. So I hit the ground, let it kind of cool down a little bit, rolled out to the side, and popped up, and my Queen's champion is there. And I'm like, "Bro, that was awesome." And he's like, "Yeah, we're slapping helmets and stuff." And we turned to our left, and Marshal 1 is in my face, and he goes, "Give me your sticker." And I went, "What?" He's like, "Give me your sticker." "For what?" And he goes, "Charging more than 5 steps." And he like rips it off my helmet. I'm like, "Ah, shit. All right, I'm fucked. Let's go." So I start marching back to my army. And, they all start gathering. And I finally find somebody. I'm like, "I need my hat," thinking that this is going to solve everything. I'm like, "Oh, I'm king. This will make everything better, blah, blah, blah." No, I was wrong. But I send the firefighter of 35 years to run all the way across the field. He comes back. No, he doesn't come back. Some other guy comes back because apparently by the time he got back to the Queen to get my hat, he was gassed. So they sent another guy back who was gassed by the time he got me my hat. I put it on. I walked back down after the end of the battle. I'm like, I find the same guy that pulled my sticker. I'm like, "Yeah," like thinking I'm hot shit, right? Totally wrong. I walk, I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to find out where to get my sticker back. And he's like, yeah, that tent right there. And I was like, that didn't work. So I walked back to my army and I'm like, all right, guys, so apparently I've got a marshal's meeting here. You guys go ahead and take the queen back to camp. I'm going to take care of this and I'll be back as soon as I could. And something that'll make me cry to this day is every one of them, including my father, was like, we're not going anywhere. We're going in that meeting with you. And I went, oh, I was like teary-eyed. I was like, no, guys, come on. Right. So like me and the queen, Belle, we meet in front of the tent. And I'm like, hey, so I got to take care of this. And she's like, yeah, we heard. And so me and like 13, 14, no, it's probably more than that, 25, and this just 40 people walk into this marshal's tent, and we're like all lined across the back of the tent, and I'm sitting on this thing, got my hat on, all this stuff, and I'm like the second case or whatever, like I'm a freaking criminal.
Marshal's court.
Right. That comes up, and they're like, all right, so what happened? And the guy's like, this guy charged all the way from the start, more than 5 feet into the sky. And they were like, all right, what's your side of the story? I went, I weigh 175 pounds. I didn't charge anybody ferociously, because apparently in the guy's telling, he's like, yeah, this guy ferociously or viciously or some like adverb that makes sense for that makes me seem like a bad guy. Guy ferociously charged more than 5 steps. And I'm like, I weigh 175 pounds. I didn't ferociously charge anybody. And I hit this, whatever. I hit the guy, bounced off for Christ's sake. But either way, they were like, they went and deliberated and they came back and they were like, yeah, so you apparently don't know the rules of Penzic. I was like, I guess not. And so they took my sticker and they're like, you can have this back when you read the Calontir Army, the rules of the list for Penzic. And I was like, all right, Army, strap up, we're going home. And so a marshal followed us, and I don't want to seem like some asshole that doesn't care about the marshalate and all that stuff, but charging more than 5 steps seems like a dumb rule to me. And
I don't understand that. If you had not had your spear down, would it have been okay? Because
it is literally, if you are charging for 5 steps, you can take 4 steps, sidestep, and charge 1 step, but you cannot charge 5 consecutive steps in charge.
So if you're running, you have to stop and then start running again.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I didn't know that either.
That's the rule.
Okay.
Yep. So I went back to camp and I read the rule of the list to my entire army of 25 in the big purple pavilion that we have with the marshal standing there. But I read it like a children's book, and I opened it real big, and everybody was sitting crisscross applesauce, and I read all the rules, and we got through it. I got my sticker back, and it was great. It was having fun. But what I didn't think would happen was the best part of the story, which I alluded to earlier, was the West party after that. And I walked in thinking I was just going to be embarrassed out of my mind. And everybody's like, oh my God, you're the king that lost the sticker, really? But really what happened was all the other crowns that were at that party came up and went, you lost your sticker, bro? You don't even know the heinous shit I just pulled off. Like, come on. And so literally like Morgan and Liz from Atenveld and just a numerous, like the Outlands crown and the Atlantean crown and the Meridian crown, like all came up, and we just drank and laughed about the whole situation. And to be honest, I made so many friends just from charging illegally at that first Penzic that I was crowned.
That's funny.
That's my best Penzic story that I got. I'll take that any day. I'll take friends over some charging rule any day.
I think you guys should have like done like an interpretive like storytelling of the rules, and you're like having your
just
suit.
Wait.
Okay.
So I held court the next day. Morgan and Liz, who are crown of Atenveld, show up, and they're like, they had talked to me already, right? They're like, we're gonna present something in court. I'm like, cool, yeah, man, just come by, it'll be fun. And I'm laureling a guy when I see the entire Atenveld army and populace come around the corner singing a song apparently they wrote for me.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like sitting there like, we're trying to do like make a pier. And I'm like looking up at him like, bro, come on, man. Just come on, like, bro. And he's like, oh yeah, haha, he knows we're coming or whatever. And some guy like runs out and is like, hey, they're in court. And he goes, yeah, we know. He knows we're coming. And I'm like, oh shit. And then the guy goes, no, they're making a laurel right now. And he goes, oh shit. And he turns around, like tells his whole army, just stop. And then sure as shit. So like we finished that. And I'm like, obviously their Majesties of Adenville would like to join us in court. And we bring them in and all this stuff. And their Majesties of Adenville presented me with the Charge-O-Matic 9000, which is basically bungee cords and a rope tied to their son at the time to prevent me from charging more than 5 steps to prevent sticker pulling. So I still have that, and I carry that to every war that I go to, especially if they're crowned at the time, so that nice. I can enjoy that. So
nice. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Okay. Who are your favorite people to watch fight?
Oh, the glorious, the entertaining, the people that go out there and make that ridiculous shot. Like, I don't, nothing against these people, but the people who are very meticulous and they do like that just one thing where they're like, big defense, that's it, there's the shot. It's a boring fight to me. I want the guys like Rothgar that are going to do that same thing where I was talking about earlier, where they're going to do the big step here and they're going to do the big over thing here, and that glorious shot, that big flourish or whatever. That's entertainment. Like, that's must-watch TV right there.
Yeah, those dynamic fights are so much more fun. I think that's the whole reason why we have shield rules in our kingdom, is to make the fights more fun to watch. But okay, do you have a hero in the SCA, and if so, who is it?
So I've had a lot of heroes in the SCA, and a lot of them are still my heroes. You know, I've got Angus, who set me up for, you know, success since day one. I've got Martino that showed me the intricacies of fighting. I've got, you know, a lot of people, but right now I think it's the people that are like you and like Helga and the people that are making the SCA still a thing when there's nothing going on. So right now, you are my hero, and Helga doing her interviews are my hero. It's like, you guys are literally making the SCA still happen right now when we can't go anywhere. And I mean, in the same thing, like I've got my squires that have kept me accountable to be a good knight and teach them and make sure that they get to success. And they're the ones that want to get together on the weekends and grill out and fight and make sure that we're still having fun and doing SCA type things. So it's the people that are still doing stuff, even though we can't go and see each other right now. That's the people that are my heroes right now.
Well, I really appreciate people like you agreeing to do these, because I know that they're outside a lot of people's comfort zones. But it's been so cool to just meet people and actually get to know people at a level that I never would at a war. Like,
and that's the cool thing. Like, I literally can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. If you had to recommend one event in your kingdom for someone out of kingdom to go to, who would it be? What would be?
Yeah, I'm totally going to copy Donegal on this, because TFT, again, is probably our biggest fighting tournament, if that's what you're into. Lily's is more than a week long, where you can hang out and do anything in the SCA.
I've heard great things about Lily's.
As long as not like 120 degrees, Lily's is freaking amazing. Like, I've been to a Lily's where it was like high of 79 or something like that in the entire week, and you've got a lake there. You've got anything you can imagine: fighting, archery, arts and sciences service, you know, classes, anything you want.
Cool.
Lily's is probably the way to go. So,
is Toys for Tots in December?
It's usually in November, and I'm a little sad at this point, because usually we are the highest contributor to the Toys for Tots Foundation in Missouri, or maybe second highest, next to one of the motorcycle associations that's in Missouri. But you know, it's become such an integral part of our kingdom that, like, I go to my company and I put on a whole drive just to take toys to this tournament and provide for the kids that need it in the winter of the year. So it's a little sad, and I keep thinking about it. I'm like, man, I've got to still do it. I've still got to figure out some way.
You guys should do some sort of online, like, I don't even know, but I keep
Sure.
wanting somebody to do like a Family Feud online, like,
Oh, that would be
with,
dope.
with fighting households, and I don't know. Okay, let's see. What book do you think everyone on the path to knighthood should read?
I can't read.
I know you went to college.
Yeah, no, but for real. So I really am not a big reader. So there's the three types of learning, right? So there's the people that can read, there's the people that can visualize, and there's the people that can do stuff when they're doing it in person. I've never been a very good learner reading. I'm currently reading Blood, Steel, or Guns, Blood and Steel, or Steel, Guns, Blood, something like that, which has been incredibly interesting, and really the first book I read in years. So throw a shout out to Neil for shooting me that. But I've read Art of War, but apart from that, to be honest, I really don't read much.
Okay.
It's just not what I get into, and some people are going to just be like, what a dummy, but to be honest, it's just not what interests me, so I don't spend my time doing it.
That's cool. Whatever works for you, right?
Yeah, no, I was really looking forward to one of your previous questions, which was what movie that is somewhat.
Okay, let's do the movie one.
Yeah, The Gladiator. Yeah, totally. Some Roman persona. Yeah, I got to get after that.
Yeah, I actually, that might be something that I need to put back on, because it's just so good.
Yeah. I own the DVD, and that's something weird to say nowadays because you just don't own physical CDs anymore. But to be honest, I could watch that movie any night of the week. Yeah. Just the love story behind it, just the passion behind the man. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good.
If you could change one thing about the SCA, what would it be?
Rules against shoes in fighting. So I wear period Caligay when I fight. And there are some rules about unprotected arches of your feet while fighting. And to me, I choose to wear these shoes because they're period. And they're not exactly with the rules, I guess. But to me, if I get hurt, that's on me. I signed a waiver kind of thing. But I would like, me personally, I want to see that rule go away, because I don't like the idea that we have to give up on a certain part of our persona when we go out to the fighting field.
I know I have a friend who would love to fight barefoot, so.
That's on them, if that's what you want to do, like, you go for it. Like, I'm not gonna fault you. I have lost a toenail before. Like, I accept it. I understand what I'm wearing. I don't want to be part of a bureaucracy where I can't do that. I like the shoes that I wear when I fight.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite in-kingdom tradition?
So this one I took a little bit, and it somewhat doesn't make sense that I'm gonna say it, but we have households in the way that, I have my squires and I have my knight, that's a household. But whenever I've gone out of kingdom, you always see households built on multiple knights within it, and just it's this conglomerate. And I think Calontir has a very good success because we don't have physical households full of people. We don't find this division amongst households. It is literally like, my household is who my squires are and who my knight is, and it's built off of that. We don't have this, we camp over here and we don't like these people, or we don't deal with this, or we're mercenaries or anything like that. Calontir seems to be this very cohesive group of people that just happen to have their knights and squires, or their laurels and apprentices, or their pelicans and proteges. So I like, or even, their masters of fences, and whatever term they choose to use. Right. I mean, to be honest, we've had 3 different titles for masters of fence so far in Calontir. We don't have a set thing, which is great because we get to explore.
Right.
And I think not having households allow people to explore other facets of people's talent. It doesn't keep you all in one place.
Well,
So,
from the outside looking in, it definitely feels like Calontir has a sort of kingdom identity. Like you're more um, like like the living room. Like you guys' big tent at
absolutely.
Pennsic is like your living room. It's interesting because we don't have that kind of culture, and it's kind of cool that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see why belonging in a household is very beneficial for a large kingdom, because you get centralized attention, right? You have people who can go somewhere and they know everybody else, and that's their group of people. And yes, they're in a kingdom, and when the kingdom goes for somewhere else, they follow, but they follow their own rules. It allows a more concentrated organization rather than the entire thing. And while Calontir isn't the biggest kingdom, I think we're able to pull it off where we all understand we're as one, so we're going to work. So
Pretty cool. Okay, what do you think is the most important trait to become a successful fighter?
passion, I think. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am if I didn't have the passion to compete, be competitive, and you, passion can be defined in every single person as something different. So my passion was winning, and it's as douchey as that sounds. Winning has always driven me. I like the feeling of winning, and I won't win at all costs. I will win by the rules, because if I don't win by the rules, it's not worth anything.
Right.
But the passion to believe that I can be the greatest, or I can be this good, or I can win this tournament, or whatever it is, whatever drives you to do something, the passion's going to get you there.
So I just have to say, I don't think it's douchey to say that you like to win. I mean, I think winning is more fun, and we should all be, you know, if we want to be successful, we should all be aiming to win.
Yeah.
So I don't think that in itself is douchey. I think it's douchey when you try to win and you don't fight in the spirit of the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a strengths test you can take out there, and I didn't realize how true this was, but I took a strengths test for my current company that I work for, because they feel like bettering you based on your strengths. And I came out with competitive as my number one trait kind of thing. And I started to read into it, and every time I ticked the mark, I was like, oh wow, this is very close to what I am. Because anytime you get into a situation, it doesn't matter if you win or not. If you cheated, or if you didn't follow this one rule, if you worked around the rules, I want to be 100% sure I won this and no doubt came from it. If there's a sliver of doubt, it's not worth anything to me.
Yeah.
What's it matter?
Well, yeah, I think like people like you, like if there's any sort of doubt at all, like it just eats at you.
Yeah.
So
It's not mentally, it doesn't help. I mean, I don't want to go through life going, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have taken that shot. Maybe.
Well, I'm a Duke, but my crown sucked.
Yeah. Well, so I literally, when I first started fighting, I would take anything that touched me, anything, because I hated the idea of potentially being called a rhino or a shot shuck or anything. I mean, I weighed whatever 125, so it didn't take much. But either way, it helped me, one, not take shots so hard, but two, it made me really defensive in the way that I have to block everything. I have to stay away. I have to get my shots in. I have to fight my fight, because if I get hit, it's one, going to hurt, and two, it's going to take any credibility away from my win.
Right.
So let me win this as cleanly as I possibly can.
Right. And that's awesome. I think that when people make their victory conditions not getting hit at all, I think it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, my first crown, I got a light leg shot, and it took a lot for me to not take that shot. But that one light leg shot flipped a switch in me to say, okay, I'm not getting hit again. Let's do this. And I ended up winning. So it was the exact thing that I needed in that moment.
Because you care about perception, and perception's important. Yeah. So 100%. All right. Well, thank you. So I really enjoyed talking to you. This
absolutely.
Has been great. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and for being flexible with me and my stupid work schedule. And thank you everyone for joining us. We had a ton of questions tonight, which I appreciate. I like it when people are engaged. And I was going to say that we were going to interview Sagan on Wednesday, but he's sick. So I'm not exactly sure what the sisters are doing Wednesday, but we will be doing something. So tune in. And thank you again, Your Grace, and have a great rest of the year. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.